Hello, I want to welcome you to the Meacham interviews, and this morning we have Leahy, all the way from California.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Would you like to read a poem first?
Sure. I think I'll read one of the last poems in my book, Aperture, and it's called Trajectory. Have you seen the movie Hidden Figures?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. This is for Katherine Johnson, one of the mathematicians in Hidden Figures, and it starts with an epigraph from Sally Ride. You remember Sally Ride,
yeah.
First woman American in space, and in a Glamour magazine interview, which astronauts didn't usually do at the time, but Sally Ride did. The epigraph reads, "When you can feel that close to something you're used to seeing at that great distance, well, it changes a person." Trajectory. Star sailor, history's tailor, spacefarer. How far she needled your path through space, past blue halo, our circle of vapor, past the vast figure eight of plasma swaths, how near to infinity and back. That happy past has gone by, is bygone, and then it came slapping back again, booming on boosters, rolling upside down, catching its breath as if overcoming dynamic forces requires only great inspiration. Will posterity sheer gravity along the seam, trail awake, wake us? She stitched astronauts' trajectory, the warp and weft of history.
Wow. Yeah, that was an amazing movie too, yeah.
It was, yeah. And I wrote the poem before the movie.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so I was looking at a whole lot of, the whole book, Aperture, is about women's lives, and so I was looking at women's lives in different
Yeah, well, you really captured
outlets,
that, it seems to me. And amazing that you did it before the movie. I mean, before all those issues really came up in the movie.
Right.
Who have you been some of your influences?
Oh my goodness. An odd influence, especially for this book, is Felicia Hemans, who was a 19th century woman poet, sort of era of Wordsworth and Coleridge, and actually more popular in her time than Wordsworth and Coleridge. And she wrote a lot of poems about women at a time when other people were not writing a lot of poems about women. So she was an odd influence early on for me as a poet.
What kinds of, did she write in those traditional forms back then too? Blank verse probably? She
wrote in traditional forms. She was very much of her time, and I think that's why we don't read her these days. She did not transcend time as well, and I think that she didn't fit the typical romantic poet definition that we developed much more recently in the 20th century. But she had some amazing poems about women who died but who had agency and who were resisting incoming armies, and she wrote about historical women, and that was something that I hadn't seen in literature that I was studying as a student, and so that really stood out to me.
Is there a collection of hers, or have you thought about bringing out a collection of her?
There is a collection. I can't remember which press it is. It might be Blackwell. They've done some things with 19th century women poets. There is available her collected works. Those are out of print, but you can still get them used.
Yeah, I'm going to check her out. That sounds really fascinating.
By some accounts, she was the most popular poet of the 19th century.
Wow, that's pretty amazing in itself, yeah. Well, I mean, especially in those times, a woman, I mean, think of like Emily Dickinson. Right. They just sort of like...
Felicia Hemans actually made her money. She raised children on her writing money.
Wow.
Yes. Her husband sailed off, and she raised the children, and she sold poems.
That's really amazing. Where did she live?
England.
England, yeah. Wow. Who have been some other influences?
Let's see. Well, I'm reading right now Barbie Chang by Victoria Chang, and I don't write anything like her, but she has me thinking about line breaks and playing with language and playing with identity in different situations, different life situations. So that's one of the books I'm reading. I'm also reading Beth Ann Fennelly's Heating and Cooling, and I'm teaching that next week in class to sort of talk about where does poetry end and nonfiction begin, and is that, she calls it micro-memoir, does that mean it's not poetry? So I'm really interested in that separation or overlap between poetry and nonfiction, in part because I write both.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Bob Vivian, does both too, and Jim Tate would always, when he was doing those prose poems, somebody would ask him, are they prose poems? And to say, well, it's writing.
Well, Stanley Plumley, I studied with him at Maryland for my MFA, and he did not call them prose poems, he called them paragraph poems, which makes much more sense to me because that distinguishes the poem by form and not by genre. And as a poet, that makes a lot more sense to me, to think of a poem in paragraphs instead of stanzas.
Yeah, and technically when you have blank verse poems, each break it's technically called a paragraph, not a stanza. So that's really fascinating. How, when you're teaching, do you teach both? I mean, in the same class?
We have workshops that I teach at Chapman University, and I'm now directing the MFA program, and we are looking at curriculum. We just went through program review, and we do have the traditional genre setup, so poetry workshop, fiction workshop, nonfiction workshop. But we are thinking about where the overlaps are, and there are some shell courses where we're doing more hybrid work or work that doesn't fit into the categories that we have. I work with some colleagues who consider themselves experimental or avant-garde writers, and they don't like to talk about genre at all. So the curriculum categories don't necessarily make sense to those faculty. But I really like the idea that there are divisions so that we can see where the overlaps are, even if those are arbitrary divisions.
Fudge them or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing actually a prose poetry workshop this time, and it's been a lot of fun. Because sometimes we've contrasted things with lines, and how do you transfer the rhythm in a line into the paragraph?
Right, right. And think about sentences and syntax related to sentence instead of line.
I found an interesting way to get them to think about that is have them write Hemans, however different people pronounce them different ways. We have to have that little haiku at the end, because then they start to think in terms of the lyricism of that versus if there's lyricism in the prose.
Right.
It's really, really fascinating.
And how those two sections talk with each other.
Yeah, exactly. Or extend of, it's been really fascinating. It's been instructive for me, very much.
I think that's the pleasure of teaching. We keep learning, right?
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely right, yeah. Well, would you like to end off by reading another poem?
Sure. I have a series in here about women and water, and so I'll leave with the last poem in that series. It's dedicated to Esther Williams. Do you know who Esther Williams is? Okay, that dates both of us then. Esther Williams was my mother's favorite movie star as a kid.
My mother's too, yeah.
Okay.
One of them, yeah.
So this is called My Mother's Mermaid. She is sequined and slicked down, with emeralds in her hair, mouth puckered and wordless red. A wave of her hand, music strikes up, a chorus line loops below, the body in water with so many legs spreading. She dives, sparkles, swims like virtue, crotches like roof beams above, the water rushes her teeth. She rises like a voice from a clear throat, as if passion were technicolor myth, as if the sea were the means for the story I tell, instead of the story itself, the thing that tells me.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. This has been a great conversation.